I'm cool. I'm fine. Great. Hey, welcome everybody. It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Evan, Barrett, and Mark for inviting us to this opportunity. Love to share with you. Interesting thing in the presentation so far this morning, there's been kind of this move back and forth, history to future, history to future. So I'm going to take you on a short journey. How many of you have still in your vaults or whatever 5 1/4 floppy disk? Doesn't that seem like a century ago? So 160 kilobyte of capacity. Recently, Kingston offered a 2 terabyte memory stick. So massive, massive evolution in terms of cost structure. My first portable computer was a Compact Portable 3 at $11,000 for the 40 megabyte version. So that's an industry that storage has really evolved quickly, and actually, you know all the ways that it changes when you look at the power that's in a phone or something like that. Batteries are poised to have that same type of evolution. So it's really monumental today. This morning, the Nobel Peace Prize for chemistry was announced, and actually the key inventors of the lithium-ion battery were recognized for the prize in chemistry. And so this is a recognition of an effort that started in the 70s. First kind of invention was Stanley Whittingham operating out of Exxon in the 1970s and early 80s. And then John Goodenough, who was at Oxford and then the University of Texas, took up the mantle, and then Akira Yoshina working out of Japan and with Sony. So those three were honored today, and this is quite an accomplishment. But I think we are at a point of an inflection point of really a generational change. So a lithium-ion battery, as you know, it powers our iPhones, it powers our cars, it's powering virtually everything. And there are limitations. I was just looking at an Apple Series 5 watch. Was shocked to see that the 18-hour battery capacity. So something that has sleep monitoring software and all sorts of things. 18 hours, it's dead. Put it on the charger, you can't use it. That's unacceptable, I think, in our current society. Certainly, that I have to charge my iPhone at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's unacceptable. So there's these use models that need to be supported. A car. My wife has a Mercedes hybrid, 13 miles of capacity on the electric side. Why? Why bother? So there needs to be a change. The 4 primary components of a lithium-ion battery are the cathode, which is the positive electrode, electrolyte in the middle, which is a gel structure with a separator, and then the anode, which is the negative electrode. So the anode is really important because anode hasn't changed in 40 years. The original design had graphite as the primary material for anodes, and everything else about the battery has evolved over time, but the anode has continued to stay graphite, 100% graphite. It's really only recently that Elon Musk and his work with Panasonic has put a little bit of silicon in there, 5%, to show that boost. So when you look at the market numbers and see a Volt versus a Tesla, you'll see a little higher, and you go, well, where's that come from? Well, it's the energy of silicon. So silicon, when you compare it to graphite, it has 11x the capacity for energy storage. So just pure chemistry and physics. It's got a lot more capability. The problem is that when you fully lithiate it, when you fully charge it, it expands 340%. So you start out with something this size, and it becomes this size. Not workable from just a form factor perspective, but even more importantly, it becomes structurally unstable. So it just doesn't work. It's not useful for a long-term battery. So there's been a lot of investment, about $3 billion so far, with every named major company you could think of that might touch batteries or battery materials, investing in trying to make the migration from graphite and its capabilities to silicon to its capabilities. And most of those have failed. I read with my executive team about 6 months ago at a meeting a wonderful press release from 3M. And you could have replaced the 3M with our name in there. It was our script. Very interesting, very compelling. This is a great opportunity. The world's going to change. And my team's getting a little bit white. And then I point out the fact that the date on that press release was October 6, 2010. Okay? And so this has been talked about for a long time. The thing that has been probably the most problematic is this swelling problem causes pulverization and the breakup. And so there's a lot of effort been into solving that because the potential is so high. So really we formed into 2 camps. All of the early failures in 15 years ago or so, were all trying to take basically off-the-shelf silicon products and try to make them into anodes, and those broke. And so what they found was that anything above 150 nanometers when charged broke apart. Anything below 150 nanometers actually didn't have enough energy in the particle to break itself apart, and so it stayed stable. So as you've heard, companies, Sila is probably the one that's the most in the press. That's their approach. It's a model that was created about 11, 12 years ago. They've continued to progress it, and I think they're on the cusp of putting a product out to the marketplace. But it's nanomaterial-based materials. And the approach that's kind of the alternative approach is which my research team at Washington State University came up with. So solving the problem of staying at a large particle and never going down versus starting at nano and building up to a large particle. And so those are really the two competing approaches. The thing of it is, it's about 100x more expensive for the precursor materials to do a nano approach, significantly more engineering, about 8 steps, a lot of customized steps to get to kind of that product that everybody will be happy with. We feel we have a much more compelling solution. We're starting at the microparticle size. We're doing a subtractive process that creates almost a sponge structure. If you would visualize washing the car, if you take and put the sponge in the water and you pull it out, it hasn't really gotten any bigger, but it's really, really heavy, and it's dripping. And so if you apply that to battery materials, if we put a charge in and we're basically dripping with lithium, but we haven't gotten any bigger, we've just filled in all the gaps, that's really kind of the layman's description of what we've done. We've been led by the national labs and some of our strategic partners as, I think it'd be ridiculous to say we're unique in the path. I'm sure there's other people working on it, but I think we're farther along from a commercial perspective, and we have a good patent portfolio and ongoing development of that patent portfolio that maybe we can defend that space. But the implications are really grand. So comparing a current graphite anode to our material, we're going from about 374 milliamp grams per hour to 2100. So it's about a 5 to 7x performance increase in anode capacity. Well, it'd be great if that was the end of the story. I'm sure all of you would love a Tesla that goes 2,000 miles. And it's out next year, or one that goes 1,000 miles, but the battery's half the cost, half the weight, half the size. So there's a lot of metrics that we're dealing with here. The reality is that the other main component, the cathode, has to be balanced, and the cathode technology is not as far along as where we are right now. So we're an enabling technology. We will allow the next generation of batteries to be built. Using the current cathode technology, we can probably harvest in the next 6 to 9 months about a 50% increase in capacity. So in an industry that's done a 1 to 1.5% improvement every year for the last 20, 30 years, 50% is huge. So that's what we're chasing. We're chasing the 50% as we collaborate with other folks in the industry and increase cathode capacity in architectures that we can't even imagine today. We're going to have 100%, 200%, 500. In the end of the day, the capacity of silicon versus graphite is 11x. So perhaps we can even get to 10 or 11x. Thank you very much.